Okay, welcome and thank you all for attending today. This is April 5th, our 2 o'clock Conroe ISD Board Workshop. Our first agenda item today is public comment. Registered citizens may address the board only on items posted on this agenda. So in accordance with Board Policy BD and the Texas Government Code, Section 551.007, any citizen who has signed up in accordance with the Board Policy BD may address the board regarding today's posted agenda items. Ms. Godfrey, do we have anyone that has signed up?
No one has signed up.
Okay. No one has signed up, so we will just continue with our meeting. And just to kind of give trustees an update on what we're working towards today. We're going to start today with the budget workshop, and we're going to follow our normal format here with folks seated at the table in hopes to really just generate conversation. While we do have some presentations planned and prepared, we would invite you to offer any questions or comments along the way, just and make it as conversational as you would like it. We will share an ESSER funding update so that you have a good understanding of the ESSER funds, how we've utilized those and our plan for moving forward, and how to kind of avoid that future cliff with ESSER funding that we know is coming. And then Mr. Rice will share with us our preliminary budget overview. Embedded within that overview will be our TASA pay plan study, and we have a representative here from TASB to share that with us. And then beyond that, we'll talk about our health plan design and premiums. And that presentation was shared with you before, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. At 4:30, we are scheduled to have a specially called board meeting. One of the agenda items in that meeting is to approve pay plans today, if possible. So while everything that we present here today is in the workshop is really important, maybe the most important to make sure that we've addressed any concerns or questions would be around the pay plans, to see if we can get to that point. If we're unable to reach a comfortable spot with the pay plans, we can pull that item from the meeting, but we anticipated that perhaps we could get there, and so we included it. So we will begin this afternoon with our ESSER funding update with Dr. Hines and Dr. Zoda.
Good afternoon, and with me this afternoon is Dr. Pam Zoda, our Director of Federal Programs, and who does a lot of work with our finance department, keeping up with ESSER. And so this is just going to be really kind of the 10,000-foot view of where we are with our ESSER funds, which is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Act, I think is what that came from. So just to kind of review where we are, ESSER 1 was the first one that came out, and actually that was the bulk of that. Most all of it went to funding the attendance on that last 9 weeks in 2020, and so that's where that went. There was a little bit of money that went out to some private nonprofits, and we did buy some e-misters, I think, with some a little bit of funds. ESSER 2 is a larger amount of $28 million, almost $29 million, and of that, that nearly $10 million came right off the top for attendance for last year. So that the state held that back as a way of kind of dealing with attendance offsets last year. So the rest of that was put into the plan, and we'll kind of take you through a little bit of the overview of where we are with that ESSER 2 plan. And you can see that it's kind of divided up into 3 columns: 2021 year, which was the money the state held back, this current school year, and then next school year where we have planned. And you can see this year we did some supplemented with some staff, formula staff, to get it. As you know, we often go over 22 to 1, so we're able to add some teachers. We were not able to fill all the positions we've added this year, but we've certainly added them. And the other access to services, we've added some things like a programmer and some other services. And then non-personnel related, the biggest purchase there was that large purchase, $5 million in Chromebooks. We also ordered $2 million for finishing off some reading libraries out of that purchase. So, and then we funded the fall semester virtual academy with ESSER 2. Now, ESSER 2 has one less year, we think, to spend the money. So it's a little bit more compacted to try to move through the funds. And then next year, what we have set aside so far, we have a little over $3 million budgeted to campus formula staff. This is really important because it's enabled us to not wait until we're trying to hire in September. And it's really important for us. So as we've hit 22 to 1 now, we're putting these positions out for next year so we can go ahead and get into, it's a very aggressive hiring market right now for teachers. And so it's been really important for us to be able to release those positions. District support staff, indirect cost. And indirect cost is money that we would be able to charge to this money that is really just part of our operational cost. So that's a very flexible amount of money. And then again, we're going to continue those services. And then non-personnel related items, we have some things that are in there. Mostly, remind me, we have some Chromebooks.
Some virtual academy.
And some virtual academy and some other equipment that is
Yes.
Wi-Fi
Wi-Fi.
improvements that are in there. So that kind of wraps up where we are with ESSER 2, and then hopefully at the end of next school year that will finish out.
And if I could just make a point here too, we're gonna talk about pay plans in a little while and insurance, but as we're focused on teacher recruitment and retention, one of the other key components to job satisfaction is, do you feel supported? Do you have enough help and people surrounding you at work, right? And so this aggressive hiring schedule means that we don't wait till next year to overfill classrooms and have teachers with, going 3-4 weeks, or more with an overfilled classroom as we wait to hire a new teacher. This is going to be aggressive ahead of time. So we know that great teachers like to be surrounded by great teachers. So I think that's the help, right?
Can I ask a question about those support staff positions? And I may be jumping ahead to the budget thing, but are those positions that are added with the ESSER funding for 21, 22, and 22, 23, are those designed to be short-term, one-year positions, things like tutors or something like that, or are those long-term positions that we will absorb into the budget in 24, 25?
So those are long-term positions. We really have, and I can share a little bit more information about it, but the district support staff, we have a couple of GT teachers, and that's really about it. We want to maintain our GT program, so we'll have to absorb that.
Thank you.
So we have a little bit of flexibility still, and I kind of go back to that chart, but you can just kind of remind you where the amounts are. The indirect cost is still basically available for us to use in other ways. We do need to spend it off next year. And then we also have another a placeholder still in our campus formula for almost $1 million left for campus positions. So as we anticipate throughout the year, we'll, in the late spring, summer, we may have to add some more positions based on enrollment and growth. Just to put that in perspective, and last year, of course, was an anomaly. We added over 100 teachers after we approved the budget, so because of growth. And of course, we grew very quickly last year, but we're trying to stay on top of that because we still have 63 vacancies right now, and so certainly we wanted to not wait till the last minute to get those out. ESSER 3, this is the amount that is almost $65 million. And again, this is where we are required to spend at least 20% on learning recovery. And you can see we're running close to 50% right now. And this is a kind of a moving target, but this is our ESSER 3. We'll give you a quick overview of where we are with those funds. And you can see, again, this is divided up into it has an extra column because we carry forward into the 23-24 school year. So we're starting to plan ahead and really think about that year and what it might look like. And so, the first year we supplemented summer school. You may remember we had a larger than normal summer school last year. We had free tuition. We're going to expand summer school again this year, and it's going to be large. We've had to increase salaries to attract staff to teach the larger enrollment, so that our costs are going to go up in that area. We also had, this year, we supplemented campus formula staff with this budget, again, enabling us to put those positions out there. We also have amounts that go out to the campuses for them to work on learning recovery. Sometimes this is software, sometimes it's hardware, sometimes it's people, like an interventionist or an extra counselor. That is roughly $9.2 million. There will be an amount next year. So they were given a 2-year planning amount. Some spent a little bit more this year, some spent less. That's going to get adjusted. Sometimes they had a person that was in a position and maybe they had another vacancy and they had to move them out of the ESSER position into a regular position, so they didn't spend all the money. And so we're going to kind of work through that and settle up with the campuses. But you can see where we have 2 years of that funding. So next year will be the second year of that. We have district support staff that are included on that, and there's a myriad of positions, one in HR, one in payroll. We have some positions in elementary ed and secondary education, so there are several positions in that area. And then we also this year supplanted the cost of our health services department, which we've expanded during the pandemic. So you can see there's a charge off of $8 million. And then we bought some equipment, non-personnel related requests, $1.6 million. And then we had, again, I mentioned summer school already, and virtual academy. And we did talk about a virtual academy last year. It wasn't approved. Senate Bill 15 didn't get passed until later into the fall. And you'll notice that we have a virtual academy placeholder for this coming school year for the 22-23. We hope to bring forward to you at the next board meeting your approval of applying for a campus ID number to offer a limited virtual school. And right now we're looking at grades 5, 6, 7, and 8 only, and limiting the number of students. But we know that probably we lose several students to other school districts that provide virtual school, and we think we can do it, and we think we can do it at a high quality. So we're going to look at trying to kick that off. And then also for next year, just kind of going through that next year column, you can see we have $2.2 million in campus formula staff. At Tier 1, which we've already released, Tier 2, $700,000, which we've already released based on enrollment growth, and then we're still holding the Tier 3 amount right now. There's also the placeholder for their campus budgets for their learning recovery amounts, district support staff. Now that's grown this year. One of the reasons it's grown, we have a program where we've created a pipeline program as part of our overall plan. One of them is we applied for a grant called T-Class, which allows us to hire student teachers that are here in a full year residency. And so we're basically hiring them for working for us for 2 semesters. And really, again, it's one of those things where all the school districts are starting to do that. So if we don't do it, we don't get the student teachers. So we've started doing that. We're supplementing that with some ESSER money to get that started. We also have a program where we're trying to grow a couple of assistant principals, so we'll be adding in those positions we placed at campuses that really need another assistant principal. Particularly some of our schools this year that are participating in the teacher incentive allotment, which is a great program, have a lot of more paperwork to do. And so it's been kind of a double whammy for some of those campuses. We're trying to help out. So that's a big part of it, and that's in next year's line item. We also have a placeholder for attendance. Again, we don't know what will happen next year, if there will be any kind of adjustments from the state or not. But we do have a placeholder, and I don't know where it happened to the screen, but it just...
The screen just went off.
Katie's working on there. Wasn't me.
Here they are.
We're trying to save energy, keep those going. Working on that utility stuff.
There it is.
All right, so and just kind of working through that, the hold harmless, we do have a placeholder of roughly $4.5 million. Again, we just don't know what will happen with attendance next year. We also have a placeholder for math support. We've targeted that based on our scores and really looking at a very focused approach to recovering lost math. And then we have some non-personnel related requests, mostly, I believe that's that hardware from the transportation.
We do have, yeah.
I think that's the tracking system for student tracking and transportation. And then we have a placeholder for $5 million to put towards if we do an employee retention stipend right now. We have a placeholder for, again, for summer school and expanded summer school. And then I mentioned the virtual academy amount. So that's what we have kind of in place for next year. And then under the 23-24 column, which I would say basically everything in that column is still kind of up for defining. But right now we have a placeholder for $4 million to kind of come off this funding cliff for some of these positions. And then we also have a placeholder for $2.2 million in indirect costs, which again is very flexible. We could reassign that to any category. And then we have, again, a summer school amount, which if we go big, again, that following summer, or if we want to scale back, and then we still have a little bit of some funds for virtual academy, which would be for mobile hotspots if we needed any, or some laptops. So that's the kind of the ESSER 3 area, just again to kind of hit what's pretty flexible in there. We still have some money in there for campus staff. We still have funds available for the 23-24 school year. And then again, we have some indirect costs that's available, as well as we have some funds set aside for the potential employee retention stipend. So those are kind of a quick overview of what's in ESSER 3. Certainly I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions on ESSER?
The funds need to be spent by end of calendar year 24?
The ESSER 3, 24, ESSER 2, 23.
Okay.
So that's a great question. Yeah, that's why that ESSER 2, we've kind of been shuffling some things around to try to draw that all down and have that spent, and then we'll delay a few things on ESSER 3. We imagine, just like anything, there's money that's budgeted that doesn't get spent, and that's the beauty of that indirect cost, is at the end we can kind of scoop it up and put it on and charge it to that item.
And the idea on the staffing is it will eventually grow into that staffing level.
It's you know, we've started the process really looking at, you know, a couple of things. One is if we can move people off of ESSER, the teaching positions, which are the large bulk of what we have, teaching positions are number one, and those, you know, we will have turnover. We can absorb those, but as we grow, we keep adding, and so I think you get into that challenge of, you know, how many are we going to add and where. Next year, you know, there's going to be a reduction because we have campus money that's out there and some district funds. The district funds mostly are just paying for positions that are going 22, they're already there, right? We're over 22-1, and we don't want to do a waiver, and we want to go and try to find a teacher. Now we're doing it. So, you know, I think for us the big challenge next year will be placing the campus staff, which is not a problem. You know, last year we had almost 600 resignations or retirements or people that moved into different positions. So it's not a problem as far as placing everybody. There might be some shuffling that needs to go on, but we're in pretty good shape in that regard. We've started looking at other positions to look at eligible funding sources, whether it's title, whether it's IMA money, whether it's Medicaid, really looking at trying to look at the future of where a position might go so we can take it off of ESSER but not lose it. Mm-hmm. So there's still a little bit of capacity out there. But I think one of the things that we're all worried about is that as big as we are, and we've put positions out there, and sometimes it doesn't even feel like they're out there. And so when you take them back, you feel it. And some of those, you know, if someone was close on a formula, maybe for a counselor, we were able to afford that counselor, or you know, and so suddenly, you know, taking that step back, I think I am worried about that. I think we'll have to pull back a little bit. There'll be a little bit of, we'll have to decide, you know, what we can afford and what we can't afford. But I think we're in pretty good shape right now, given the size that we are.
I know that, you know, our financial team does a very good job of accurate projections into the future, but some of this, when we're looking at 22, 23, 24, there's a little bit of crystal ball gazing and guessing what needs will be. if needs don't necessarily line up with that, particularly about 23, 24, do we have the ability to reallocate those funds to different lines? Like if we don't need $9 million for hold harmless, or we don't need whatever, $2.2 million for tier 1 campus staff or whatever, do we have the ability to?
We're in good shape. I mean, so we have to spend 20% on learning loss, which we're gonna do. That's not a problem. So we're gonna be in good shape, and we have a placeholder. You know, we already built in a placeholder for next year to kind of step off the cliff a little bit anyway, so we anticipate that it'll be more than a 1-year step. The other thing that we can do, and certainly it's for your discretion to consider, is if we ever get an opportunity where we have money that goes into the fund balance, that you could designate a piece of that for, like, you know, let's keep $1 million for stepping off that cliff for some of these positions that we don't want to really just have disappear overnight. So there are a lot of options with that. But on the reverse side of that, just as well, if we don't need certain positions going forward, there's some flexible uses. There is a cap on how much we can charge to indirect costs, so we know that, but and we have to receive certain things, but you know, we'll know well enough in advance so that, let's say we have some money left over and we think, let's do a big order of computers, or you know, and I know we'll talk about the budget, but how, you know, ESSER has been great in leveraging our regular budget. I just look at it that way. It's helped us to get the most out of that. Some things, we've worked very closely with the finance department because some things are just hard to do with federal money, so it makes more sense to do it with local money and do some things with federal money. So it's been really, it's been a very positive process that we've gone through to work together. So somebody may pay for it, and we thought we were going to pay for it, but somebody else is paying for it because we're going to pay for something different, you know, and those kind of things. But yes, it's very flexible. We've kind of learned all those flexibilities and where we can move the funds to.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? ESSER? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hines, Dr. Zoda. We'll transition here, let Darren come up and get settled, and we'll transition to the budget conversation. All right, I know that we had shared this presentation with you ahead of time. It's a lot of slides, and as Mr. Rice and I looked at it, there are a lot of slides that we'll move through quickly because they're ones that you're very familiar with, and there won't be much speaking to them. But as we spoke of before, we'll definitely want to slow down on the pay plan conversation and really make sure that everybody has all the information you need there. We will now move to item 4, preliminary budget overview. Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Dr. Knoll. Well, good afternoon, members of the board and Dr. Knoll. It is my pleasure to present the 2022-2023 preliminary budget. Today we have a number of very important topics that we need to discuss: average daily attendance, property values, employee pay plans, and benefits. We're going to concentrate on the employee pay plan today, and we're hoping that we can come to a consensus and approve the pay plan at the board meeting later this afternoon. An approval of this pay plan will help us, as Dr. Knoll said. We have our annual job fair this weekend, so that will help us with those rates being posted out. So we'll begin with just a quick legislative update. On the May ballot this year, voters will be able to vote for an additional $15,000 homestead exemption. That will increase the current homestead exemption from $25,000 to $40,000. This change takes effect in tax year. I don't know why that is synonymous.
Yeah, I know we're trying to figure out why it's doing that.
Takes effect in tax year 2022, effective for the 22-23 school year. And districts will be held harmless for this loss in value. TEA came out and they did approve an attendance hold harmless. They announced that for the 21-22 school year. It impacts the 1st through 4th 6-week reporting periods. And it generates approximately $10 million for the district, and this is really a hold harmless. It's no additional money for the district. You will see in a second our attendance rate is about 92% compared to us budgeting at 94%. So it's about a break even there for us. So taking a look at the items that drive the budget, and we begin with our 2022-2023 budget objectives, and they include to meet the needs for the 22-23 school year. This year we are opening Gordon Reed Elementary. We want to provide a competitive compensation plan. You know, inflation's running around 7+% currently. We want to utilize an aggressive approach to staffing allocations to hire the best teachers available in a tight job market, and you heard Dr. Hines speak to that just a second ago. And we want to continue to provide supplies and equipment for maintaining a safe and productive learning environment for our students and staff. So y'all seen this presentation a lot, and y'all will say this is the most important slide that we will probably look at today, because this slide determines both the revenues that the district will receive, and it is how we base all of our expenditures. This year, we're using an enrollment of 69,515 students. That is an increase of 1,750 students. We traditionally use around 1,500, but we're being a little bit aggressive to help us with our hiring this year, accounting for that growth that we're going to see from September 1 through January, taking that into account. So 1,750 growth, and we are using an ADA percentage of 94%. There is a little bit of risk there going with 94%, as we can see that, you know, with COVID out there, we've struggled at 92% for 2022.
Two things I'll mention there is, one, you remember in the ESSER, we had 4.5 million in attendance relief. That's roughly 1% of cushion that's built into our ESSER funds to help us there. So we have that cushion. The other thing I would just tell you is, you know, this is my #1 legislative agenda item when I speak to our legislators, and I encourage you as well. But there are very few states in the nation anymore that fund off of ADA. It's an antiquated system. We need to get off of ADA funding. We need to be funded for the number of students that are enrolled. And that doesn't necessarily require them to put more money in the system. We just need to know how much money we're getting, so that, because you still have to hire the teacher, right? The kid's absent or not, the teacher still has to be there. So if you get those opportunities to have conversations, that's an area where I think we could get some relief.
And then it goes without saying, and I know y'all are aware, but the expenditure budget is based on our enrollment, and we're funded on ADA, so I always have to add that caveat. This graph just shows our enrollment trend over the past 10 years. You can see we've been pretty steady, 1,500 plus per year, except for 2020-21 when we had the COVID during that year, so pretty consistent there.
And today's enrollment, if you could slide back, and Darren uses snapshot data on here, but today's enrollment is 68,500.
Yes, sir.
So even from what we show here is 21-22, we're up 800 kids.
So this is our Greater Houston area tax rates. You can see there in the red, that's Conroe ISD. We're at $1.176. We are the 3rd lowest tax rate in the Greater Houston area. The school districts in the dark blue, that are our local Montgomery County school districts. And the school districts in the green are our peer school districts that we not only compare to financially, but also academically. So very good standing with our tax rates. Very interesting slide here today, our certified property values. Talked with the appraisal district on Tuesday, and our first iteration that we received from them of property values this year came in at a little under 29% growth. This is a statewide, I want to call it a phenomenon, but house values, home values, property values are just skyrocketing across the state. There are some school districts in the Dallas, Austin area that have received over 50% increase in their values. We brought that down. We're going to be conservative at 15%. As y'all can see, 15% will change our certified values about $6.4 billion, bringing our total certified value to just under $50 billion at $49.6 billion. So a large increase there. And so what does that mean to our tax rate? What will taxpayers have to pay? So we try to explain it over these next couple of slides. First, starting with tax rate compression. Tax rate compression is a way that the legislature provides taxpayers with savings on their tax bill. However, this savings has a floor, which means once the tax value outgrows that floor, any funding above that, any value above that goes, taxpayers still have to pay for that. So our local share or taxpayer contribution is limited to 2.5% growth. And if you can look on the slide on the right, this is straight off of TEA's website. They show that basically dollar for dollar, as local share increases, state share decreases, dollar for dollar there. So for school districts, any tax revenue growth is offset dollar for dollar with a decrease in state funding. So districts receive no net new funding. Although our tax revenue will go up, our state funding will go down accordingly. So when a district hits the compression floor, the maximum, and the compression floor is the maximum amount the state will compress the M&O tax rate, the taxpayer contribution beyond the compression floor is directly reduced from a district state funding. So the state is sole beneficiary of increase in property taxes as it relates to the M&O budget. The only budget that it does help us with is on the debt service side.
So let's talk about that a little bit, like just real terms, right? Because people are gonna wanna know, right? The bottom line for our budget is it doesn't matter if property values increase 2% or 30%. We don't see any additional funding.
Right.
And that's not the same for other local government entities. So, the county, for example, might be different, right? Because they're funded differently. All of their money comes from local tax revenue. So they may be in a position where they're gonna see a windfall of funds come in because of property tax or property appraisals going up. For the school district, it does not. So it could, like I said, it could be 2%, could be 30%, makes no difference. The state will compress our tax rate and then it's set. Any other change to that tax rate would actually decrease our amount of funding from what we had this year moving forward. And it's going to be confusing for people, right? Because they're going to see their school district tax bill and their school district tax bill is going to be higher. And so they're going to assume that we are going to be receiving all this extra money. But as TEA's on slide shows you, it's dollar for dollar. Whatever we receive locally, they take away on the state level. So when this is all said and done, the state's going to be providing very little money to us to educate our children. They're going to be holding it all in Austin. So they're going to be very flush with cash due to this increase in property appraisals, but we're not. We're going to be exactly where we've been this year on our M&O side.
So we kind of prepared a visual for y'all to try to show this. So on the left, there's a scenario there if we had 5% AV growth versus 15% AV growth. So when we work on the state funding formula, our entitlement for our funding that we're able to generate with the ADA that we're expecting will generate $573 million. And as you can see, it doesn't matter if it's 5% or 15%, we're still limited to 573. The only thing that changes is the amount that the state has to contribute. So if you look on the first slide at 5% growth, local share is $405 million. But as it grows to 15%, local share is the one that goes up to $424 million, and the state share decreases to $149 million. So you can see that difference. And then just wanted to give you a comparison. In 1997, the state provided 41% of our budget. For fiscal year 2023, we're looking at the state providing 26% of our budget, and that is all based off of property value increases.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
That $19 on that last slide, when on the 15% growth, when they give us when the state gives CISD $19 less, where's that $19 go? When you say the state gets it?
Well, what happens is it decreases the state's liability, so the state just doesn't. It goes in their fund balance, is where it goes.
It's in their general fund.
It's in their general fund, and then they can use it at their discretion.
So what we would anticipate, and I would just you just assume with the math, right? When every year before the legislative session, was it Glenn Hagar, right? Comes out and he'll say, he'll tell the legislature, you have $6 billion to spend or whatever this legislative session. What's going to happen this time around is he's going to tell them they have 15 billion. Yeah, it's going to be an unbelievable amount of money because they're going to have way less liability to every school district in the state. So all that money they're going to be keeping in addition to every other way in which they've made more money. So they're going to be flush with cash, which then they'll have to decide how they're going to do that, right? Are they going to increase the compression possibilities for us, or what will, that'll be their choices as to how to do it. We won't have any control over that, but they will have some options in Austin.
Is someone saying that this 15-20% growth on property values is unsustainable? Is anyone discussing that?
I don't know, because it's not our, I mean, we don't have no control over it, so I mean, that's not a,
We were concerned with sustaining 5%.
right?
And now now we're hitting unprecedented, 15, maybe 20, 25% that we're gonna see this year is unprecedented.
Some counties are reporting 40 to 50.
40 to
right?
50%.
In the Austin area.
And what happens if we hit 100%? Like, we cover all of our,
If we were to
Okay,
generate more than was needed, we would be in a situation like our neighbors to the west, where you have to
Yeah,
send
that
money
would
back
check.
to the state.
so recapture.
Yes.
Meaning, not only do they pay us less, we get less from the state, but they actually take
Yes.
Yeah, we would actually
local
send them a
money.
check.
Yeah? Yeah.
So taking a look at our tax rate history, in 2018, 2019, we were sitting at $1.28. We're projecting this year with the tax compression, our tax rate decreased by 6.14 cents, be a total tax rate of $1.1146. That is a tax rate decrease of 16.54 cents over that time period. M&O tax rate will be 85.46 cents, and our debt service tax rate will stay the same at 26 cents.
And that's our floor right now, Darren? We can't
We
go
cannot
below
go
that, right?
Correct. Correct.
And the floor is based off of this year's tax rate or last year's tax rate? How do they generate what your floor is?
It's based off of the state's compressed rate.
Okay,
No district can be less than 90% of that rate, so that's
okay.
where
That's our number.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay.
Can you real quickly go back to that district comparison bar graph on the tax rates? Or that one?
And what we're hearing in Montgomery County, talking with the appraisal district, every district in the county is gonna see rates. So you're gonna see them primarily all hit their floor. Now, compression for New Caney might be totally different than the compression for us, so they might see further compression than we do.
Okay, thank you.
So now that we've looked at the components that drive the budget, we will look at the results they have on the budget, starting with the 2022-2023 revenue estimate. Once again, our local revenue, our tax rate is compressed to the floor, will generate $28.8 million. State funding decrease with Robin Hood and House Bill 3, straight off the top, $28.8 million. Our state funding increase, once again, we're counting on 1,750 new students, will generate $26.2 million. First year of our teacher incentive allotment will generate $2.2 million. TRS in kind, that's our accounting entry we do each year, $1.75 million increase. And then with rates going up, as we've seen from the Fed, we think we can increase our revenue on interest by $2.5 million, giving us total estimated available funding of $32.65 million. So really, that's the revenue side of the budget. Now we'll move to the expenditure side of the budget. And we'll
Any
begin-
questions on that before we kind of move forward? It's kind of the moving out of revenue now and into expenditure.
So that's based on an increase of 1,750 in students.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And we're
Which is
already-
aggressive.
Yes, it is.
It is, right, but we're
And
already
94%.
within 1,000 students
Yes, sir.
of that.
Yes. I think
So
we'll
it's
get.
really not as aggressive as we kind of think.
Right.
No.
Based on where we are today, if we sustain where we are.
Yes, we are, it's more aggressive than we've typically been, but we're all
Correct.
very comfortable with it. It's not reckless. It's
Right,
just
I get you.
probably, I say aggressive, it's probably just more accurate than what we.
And as Dr. Hines stated earlier, if we do get in a bind, we do have the ability to absorb positions, if we needed to.
Okay.
I think the takeaway from that slide for me is to just be count ourselves fortunate that we're growing, right?
Yes.
That's the
the key.
we speak to that all the time. The biggest challenge for school districts is growth, because we have to deal with bonds, you have to do all that, you have to build new schools. But where you don't want to be as a school district is not growing.
Yeah.
That is absolutely deadly for, under this current funding formula. If you are not growing, you're literally dying.
Yeah.
You're in trouble. So growing is a good problem. We'll welcome it and deal with it, but yes.
Well, and in the grand scheme, we're adding 15 kids per school. If we looked at it
Right.
for 1,000 children, we'd add 15 students, so.
And we've learned to manage growth.
Yes, we've
Over all
managed
our
it beautifully. I
lifetime.
mean, you look at our,
Absolutely.
our debt to assess value ratio is lower today than it's been in 25 years, despite, tripling our enrollment. We've done a nice job of controlling that piece as we've grown. So we know how to manage that.
Right.
We would not know how to manage shrinking. We've not done that. All of us would be in a new spot, but we know how to manage growth.
And if I can go back to this slide just real quick, I wanted to mention I am working with Mr. Roebuck, our financial advisor, because it does put us in unique position with our debt plan. Number one, we might look at selling the last tranche of bonds that we have in the environment that we have now, because interest rates are still low before they hit any of the rate hikes. And that will allow us to keep our tax rate stable at where it is. Or we might have to look at paying cash, doing a cash defeasance of some of our debt to maintain our tax rate where it is in the debt service.
Yeah, which is great. It's a wonderful place to be, right, where we can pay off some debt early and move forward. So that's the one side of the house where the appraised value does help us, is on that bond and indebtedness side that we can.
So we might be bringing something to the board at the next board meeting. So now looking at our compensation plan, and we'll begin with the TASB salary study, and TASB stands for Texas Association of School Boards, and they conduct a comprehensive survey of our salaries, stipends, and pay practices for Texas public school districts. Our participation ensures the district has access to the most recent market data available to pay competitive salaries and hire the best employees. And it also allows the district to evaluate our compensation plan as compared to districts in our area that are hiring from the same applicant pool. And at this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Jennifer Barton with TASB. And I'll pass the.
Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. Jennifer Barton with TASB HR Services. Usually you see Amy and Jennifer, but I'm here this year. We're kind of switching over the reins a little bit. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our pay system maintenance that we do every year with the district. Some of this will look very familiar because it is the same process that we go through, but then the recommendations, of course, will look a little bit different this year. Last year we did this virtually, and now we're back to in-person, so it's really nice to be here and to see everyone today. So let's just talk briefly about the pay study process or the pay review process that we do every year with the district. So, I as the consultant, and Amy still works with me on the backside, but we meet with the district and we talk with them about goals for compensation for this year. We talk a lot about revenue and of, what we need to do for the compensation plan for this year. Once we kind of have those goals and a direction to go, we go into the data collection process. This is where we work with the district to pull all of the pay data, employee pay, pay plans, all of those things that go into creating the compensation plan each year. Once we receive all of that data and we do cleanup, then we look at basically the market. We have used the local market that we've used for years because we've worked with Conroe for a very long time, and we'll get to that. And we really look at our benchmark jobs that we pull out of our salary survey that we use each year, and we gather that market data to see where positions are in the market, whether that's teachers, your administrative professional, your hourly, and we match those common jobs. And then we look at your pay plans and we align the pay structures. We make adjustments where we need to based on, district input, as well as looking at market value, making sure, for those positions that we really need to lead the market, that we are addressing those. Maybe where we have some areas, maybe we're lagging and we want to improve, we do that through the adjustment of the structures. And then we also look at individual employee pay and how we can adjust those, the pay for those individuals, whether that's providing some extra adjustments or moving them towards the market value for their job. So it's really two different pieces that we look at. So when we're thinking about market pay strategy, we kind of think about that bullseye. When we're thinking about the market rate, that is exactly where we would like the majority of our positions to be in general. That's kind of basic compensation. However, there are positions where we would like to see them leading the market. For example, your teachers, right? We definitely want to lead the market when we're thinking about that. Maybe some of your, really difficult to fill jobs. And so we may be looking at a market rate that's at 105% or 110%. There are other jobs that maybe we see below that 100% or market rate that might be within that 90 to 100% range, and that's okay. It could be based on maybe that incumbent has fewer years of experience, or maybe we're okay with just not necessarily leading the market, but having a market value within that range. Typically, we would say a competitive range for a position would be within the 90 to 110%. However, it really is dependent on district value, the type of job, and how competitive it is within the local market as well as the market around. And please stop me if you have questions. So let's talk a little bit about Conroe. So every year we look at market districts. So this is basically your local market. These are the districts that we know we compete with as a district, and we want to make sure that we're pulling that data in, that we are offering competitive salaries for all of our pay groups with this market. And so as you can see, it is the same group that we've used year upon year. And you can see, you know, the enrollment is very widespread in there. So you have some districts that are very small compared to some that are a lot larger. So within that particular market, you have a lot of different data points, which helps control how we match market as we get into the study. The only district that did not participate in our salary survey this year was Magnolia ISD. And so we were only able to get teachers' pay schedules from them, and we were not able to get market for your exempt and non-exempt, but we were able to get teacher market for that particular district. Most of the time in this area, in the Houston area, all the districts are really good about participating in our survey because we work with almost all of them. Other sources that we look at is we look at, for our directors and above, we're looking at that statewide market comparison for districts with enrollment of 50,000 students or more. And so as I said, you have these very small to very large districts. So when we're thinking about the directors and above positions, so anything all the way through top leadership, we want to make sure that we have a bigger data set to look at matching market, because it's likely that you're going to pull that talent or recruit from a wider area than just this metro area. We also look at with those non-school market values. So when we're thinking about a lot of our jobs that we see in, the private sector, so it could be your corporate jobs like technology, things like that. It could be retail jobs, all of that for some of your hourly. We're going to pull in some of those non-school market values from the Economic Research Institute and Comp Analyst. Those are two third-party vendors that TASB HR Services purchases every year, so we have that non-school market data. And so for many jobs, we do want to look at, obviously, at school district data, but we want to make sure that we also are comparing to non-school for those jobs. So last year, you probably remember this particular graph, but we compare every year basically where teachers sit compared to the market median. So for this year, you can see Conroe is the orange, and then the market median is the blue line. That at every point, we survey for 0, 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. At every point, Conroe ISD is sitting above the market median, and that is what we would want to see. For teachers, we're leading the market, right, as a whole. And we typically anticipate that the market's going to shift approximately 2% every single year. So we want to keep that line steadily above the median and moving in that pattern. And so when we get to the recommendations, we have given you recommendations to hopefully keep that constant movement going for teachers. Any questions on the market? Here it is in numbers. And so as I said, we survey for these years, and you can see where you are percentage-wise, as well as the actual dollar difference from market at each of those years. So if you were to look at the dollar difference, you'll see at the 10-year mark that you're probably lowest to market, right? You're only $500 above, but still, you're still leading the market at 1% above at every year. So you can just see there where, okay, well, we might think, okay, we want to make sure that we're at least 102 or 103% of market, so we're going to need to do something somewhat significant this year in order to keep that movement going.
And just for clarification's sake, when you say leading the market, we're ahead of the market median. Doesn't mean we are the highest paid in the market of everyone in the market. Just want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Yes, that's a great point. So for compensation knowledge, when we say we're leading the market, that we are ahead of the market median, which we would consider 100% of market, right at market value. But no, in your area, you're not quite at the top. But Conroe is very competitive within your group also, though. We also look at commonly seen teaching area stipends. So these, we would consider these like add-ins for teachers that we typically see within the market. Sometimes you'll see some districts offer a lot of teaching area stipends. But what you'll see is their base pay is maybe not as competitive, and so they're trying to supplement some of that teacher pay. But in Conroe, you have competitive, base salaries for your teachers, and so it's not necessarily needed to have some of these particular stipends. So right now, the district offers the general master's degree, special education self-contained, and the bilingual. This is what we typically see within the market. This is not anything different than what we'd like to see. You can see that there are some districts that offer the math and science as well as the special education general resource. But what we say is if you are able to recruit and retain those individuals with the salaries you have, that you would only want to add those if necessary. But that's always a consideration along the way. So we're going to move over to exempt. We're moving a little away from teachers. Now we're into your exempt positions, which would be like your administrative professional positions, whether it's administrative business or your administrative education. And then we do have some positions that we compare in this market that are on the teacher hiring schedule. So your ROTC positions, your ag teacher, and a few others. And so overall, you can see, again, we're thinking 100% is even with market. So if you're above or below, so administrative business overall, you're a 1% below market, and employee pay is 2%, is 3% below market there. And so we do benchmark for 28 jobs. In your administrative business, we do have some local market that we compare, but we bring in a lot of combined values. So your local market and your non-school market to compare these jobs, because you do compete against the business sector for a lot of these jobs in that group. Administrative education, 3% above market overall, and then we're looking at 4% for your employee pay. And so again, competitive to market, but we want to make sure in the administrative education group that we are making sure that we're looking at those jobs that are in the educator career pathway, that we're ensuring that, we're strengthening that and keeping that pathway strong. We also do bring in a multitude of market variables here to look at this group, because you do have your directors, your top leadership, you have a lot of your professionals like your special education related services and those areas that we've really focused on to help move their pay. We also look at nurses and some of those other different particular positions that we have in this group. And so we definitely want to be leading the market whenever we're thinking about those educator career pathways and those other positions. And then, as we said, we do have a few one-off positions that we compare and 3% below market there for those jobs. Any questions on your exempt market? Okay. So non-exempt, now we're talking about our hourly groups. And so you can see here we look at the employee pay to market, the midpoints, so basically where they are in the structure. And then we really look at those hourly rates when we're thinking about our, starting rates when we're thinking about our hourly pay. That's what we really want to think about here. But overall, your hourly positions are paid competitively. We're at least at or above market at all points for employee pay to market, as well as the pay grade midpoints, and then the same for starting pay. And so you can see your administrative support are those, administrative assistants and your clerical technical positions. Instructional support would be those particular hourly positions that are supporting the campuses. So we have your instructional assistants, your special education assistants, and so on. Auxiliary would be your manual trades, your custodians, cafeteria workers, and then of course your police.
I have a question about police. You're only using school police?
So we actually combine for police. So we look at local market as well as your non-school. Is that what you're asking for market? Or
Well, are you comparing them to the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office or the Montgomery County Constable's Office?
So specifically, we pull in non-school market, so it would be within the area, but not those specific organizations, if that makes sense. So they're within the non-school market in this area. So what we look at is we look at the Houston metro area, and we're looking at how a police officer within this metro area would compare. We pull that value in along with local school market for the market districts.
Okay, so you said you have 4 benchmarks, meaning only 4 data sets?
No, so 4 benchmarks are the 4 jobs that we look at. So we're looking at your police officer, we look at dispatcher, we have sergeant, lieutenant,
Okay.
those, the 4 jobs.
And this is a slide that, we look at internally, and I understand what this says, but I also understand that the world is changing quickly, and we know, as we look at this, the positions that we can't fill, because they tell us that we're underpaid, are on this slide. Instructional support, those are the ones. While we look like we're strong to the market right now, my guess is the market's moving faster than you all can compile the data, which is why you'll see in the recommendations what we'll bring forward.
Yes, and that's a great point also. So what we anticipate, of course, we don't have, the magic 8 ball, right? But what we anticipate is that we will see a drastic shift in the market for hourly positions next year. That we will see that many school districts obviously will be much further above market. The market's going to shift dramatically. Where we normally see like a 2% shift, we're probably going to see way more than that for hourly positions for sure. It's just what we're hearing from school districts, the trend of increasing that starting pay to that living wage and things like that. Other questions? So our recommendations, and we've worked with district admin to compile these, but we're certainly here to talk about these, is to adopt the proposed pay plans with the adjustments for the next school year. So again, those strong starting salaries for all jobs, looking at your midpoints aligned with market, so looking at that market value, looking at the jobs aligned within the structures, and we did make adjustments to structures to strengthen pay for employees as well as pay across the positions, and then to increase starting rates for the non-exempt groups, and that was a specific area that we focused on. Recommendation 2 is really our model. So to adopt a general pay increase model to maintain market position. So we are looking at $1,500 for teachers, 2% for non-teachers, and then increasing the floor of starting pay for all the hourly groups beginning at $13 per hour. Recommendation 3 is to implement additional adjustments to the teacher pay structure to improve market competitiveness. We will need to add some adjustments to years 1 through 6, and that is to ensure that we can offer the $60,000 for starting pay, and we just basically have to adjust those first few years to make sure that we do not have compression within those first early years in the structure.
Can I see recommendation 1, please?
Sure.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Sure. Recommendation 4 is very typical to what we normally recommend. As I said, we provide some additional adjustments to help move employee pay. So once we apply the general pay increase, we look at employee pay to say, okay, where are they within the market? So if they're below that 90%, if they need to move a little bit more, if we've adjusted structures, then we want to make sure that we bring employees into the structure, at least that 1%, because when a district hires a new employee to that position, we do not want veteran employees making less than that new employee. We also look in your administrative business and administrative education at those employees whose pay falls below that 90% of midpoint mark. And if that is the case, then we apply another additional 1% to help move them. Now, that doesn't mean they'll be at market value, but they are going to move closer to market value over time. We also have some placement scales, which essentially aligns pay by experience for specific groups. And so we have applied that to nurses, to the exempt employees in Administrative Education 4, which is basically your special education related services and that group. We also look at applying a placement scale to all of your hourly groups. What placement scales do, bless you, is align pay by experience. It helps alleviate compression. It helps move those individuals to midpoint at a faster rate to that market value. And then we, again, look at those employees in the educator career pathway, ensuring that those jobs are strong, and we ensure that pay is 2% above the daily rate of a teacher with the same experience. So essentially incentivizing those educator leaders coming out, counselors, assistant principals, for example, so that way they're making at least that 2% more than what they would be making in the classroom. And then recommendation 5 is to continue to annually review the district compensation plan and to update as needed each year, which is what we've done with Conroe for years. And then this is our cost model based on the recommendation. So it would be the $60,000 starting pay for teachers and $1,500 for across the board for every continuing teacher. The 2% general pay increase for non-teachers, which is based off the midpoint of their pay range, and then the $13 floor for your starting rate for all of your hourly groups.
And just to kind of reiterate our process here, TASB helps us by being the compiler of our data. They aren't our decision makers through any of this process. So we share with them what we want to see, and they bring that to us. So just, I know sometimes there's questions about that and how that, we work with TASB, that's how it works. Mr. Hubert has served as the board's liaison to this process this year. We've had a board member in the last few years be a part of this, and Mr. Skeeter Hubert was kind of with us through this process this year as the board's liaison. He's unable to be here today, but was with us through the process.
I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding the retention incentive stipends that we have done, are those considered in part of the compensation package?
So they are presented by the district as part of the compensation package. However, we do not consider those because of, we look at base salary, basically, when we're looking at our pay plan. And so everything beyond that is with the district.
Well, I'm confused then because you did talk about some of the other stipends for math teachers or.
So those are
master's
teaching area
degree,
stipends. So those are not considered retention stipends. Those are actually stipends for areas that we would consider hard to fill.
Correct, I understand.
And
Okay.
one of the key differences is within TRS. So there's TRS money and non-TRS money.
Correct.
So the stipends they consider,
Yes.
like the academic stipends are considered TRS money. So it counts to your total salary.
Retirement.
Retention stipends are outside of TRS money. So that's,
Yes,
they
exactly
only
right.
look at TRS money.
So we're not really looking at total compensation package.
Correct.
That I would normally see. So, because I'm a little confused, if you're saying we need to increase teachers' salaries by $1,500, and we gave them $1,500 in stipends last year that weren't included in your decision, aren't we where we needed to be?
Do you want me to answer it or you?
That's the question I have.
Well, the
I'm
question
not-
is,
I'm not in disagreement
currently
of
in our-
giving teachers an increase.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand the math.
in our environment and with our peer districts, they've all given those retention stipends also, so.
Right. Well, that's what's hard for me as a board member to understand if I'm looking at what we want to do to increase ours, but I'm not really looking at total compensation. I'm only looking at TRS total compensation.
Right.
I mean, it's hard for me to be competitive if I'm in a closet that's dark and I don't have the information from the other districts around that we're trying to compete against. And I'm just confused by that. It's hard to understand and be able to make a good, hard decision that's going to help keep Conroe ISD competitive in the marketplace if we're not including total compensations. It's just hard for me.
Yeah.
What piece is missing other than the stipend? I'm sorry, the retention stipend.
I think that's the
That's
only
the piece
one.
that's missing
That's the
here.
one, but I mean, what are other districts doing and,
The retention stipend piece?
yeah, yeah. I mean, if we're gathering data from all of these, why don't we include?
Well, the
all
slide
of
right
it?
after that, we actually get into retention stipends and
Right.
through our conversation with our peer districts and our competitive districts, our Montgomery County districts,
Right,
they're all doing retention stipends.
right.
You know, they're all doing about 2%, for teachers, about the same for their hourly employees, and then they're using a lot of the ESSER money to pay for these retention stipends
Okay.
moving forward.
I mean,
We
if we're
can
talking-
compile you a list.
But we definitely,
If we're looking at a 13.3% increase in our budget, right?
yes,
right.
13.3 million.
Right.
increase.
Plus another 5 for retention stipends, we're now looking at 18 million, not 13 million.
Correct.
And I'm just, again, I'm not opposed to any of this. I just want to be transparent about understanding total compensation package so that we have, as board members, good information with which to make decisions. And it'd just be nice to know, how do we totally compare from our district to other districts in our area that we're trying to compare with?
Yeah, we could definitely bring that to the board, that information.
And there's other hidden compensation in there as well, I would say, the retention stipend's one, right? But one that we'll see when we get to
Days off.
benefits is monthly contributions.
Sure,
Of
absolutely.
insurance benefits is one.
Absolutely, sure.
One in which we know where we were behind, but now I think we are more competitive to the market is a number of sick leave days given per year. You know,
Right.
we were forever well behind that. Now I think we've come closer. We're still not the leader in that, but we're closer. What is it? Oh, we've got a watch.
It attacked Karen.
But that's, you know, I think that
Yeah.
all of those things, not, Darren, do you have a list anywhere that,
It'd just
of
be
all
nice to,
retention
even,
stipends?
I do not have that,
Yeah.
you know, when, do we have that?
because if we have positions that we're, still have unfilled, there's a reason why they're unfilled.
Right.
And so it's,
One of the benefits, and just to, we'll see it when we get to the next slide, but just to be clear, since we're talking numbers, what we're showing is 13.3 million in salary increase, and then it's 13 million in retention stipend as well.
Okay.
It's really 26.
Okay.
Just to be clear, we'll see that. But when we do talk about retention stipends, one option that we have, let's say we were to approve tonight a $500 retention stipend and a 1,000, you could always amend that. So
Correct.
in the future. So if the budget came in stronger, or whatever, and you decided you wanted to turn that 500 into a greater amount, you could. Sure. And that is one of the nice things about the retention stipend flexibility. But we can absolutely compile a list. The challenge will be getting people to commit to what they'll do next year. We know what Magnolia's doing because they've put it out. They've already said they're doing 2 $1,000 retention stipends. They're doing all these sign-on bonuses, all those things, which are great, but our starting teacher pay is significantly better. And so when you go to total comp, but then they do some things like daycare that we don't do. So it does get gray.
sure.
But a lot of those things are nice,
I'm not
like
trying to be
the-
critical.
No, but in the end,
I'm
it's
simply
about
just
Bill
saying,
paying money,
I want to
regardless of
understand
where it comes
exactly,
from, right?
when the teacher goes home at the end of the day, are they satisfied because they've felt like they've been adequately compensated on a total, complete basis?
Agreed. Yes, sir.
Behind me.
Yes, we can get that for you. Absolutely.
Hey, just a quick question. The $13 minimum pay, starting pay, what are we at right now?
$12.
With the approved things we did this year is $12? Yeah, okay.
That was a big step we took last year.
Yeah.
To go to 13 for this year.
Okay. We have a significant amount of those positions that are unfilled right now, right? The $12 is not competitive? Sorry.
Who falls in that tranche? Who falls in that
falls in
tranche?
the
I know
$12 an hour
custodial,
category.
I know, Daryl,
So auxiliary employees, yes, sir. Custodians,
yeah, okay,
No, it's child nutrition,
child nutrition,
let's go.
bus monitors, and bus monitors.
Bus drivers?
and bus monitors, not drivers monitors.
Okay.
Let's see.
Bus driver's 18.
Driver's pretty good.
Yeah, I think to Mr. Sanders' point, like, I think it would also be good to know where we're having significant issues hiring. Yeah, to know this is a clear indication that we are not competing with the market, right?
I think it would be helpful in the future to, if we could see kind of, sorry to add some work to you, Ms. Green, but, what positions are we having trouble filling? And if there's some targeted compensation that we need to do for those, I think that would be helpful, in addition to what's being provided, because it's all great information. It's just, if there's certain, if 13's not the number, then, we call Taco Bell over here, and they tell us what they're pay to start you at over there. And that's who we're competing with, at some of those.
Yes, sir.
I think I heard earlier someone said we had 600 teachers turnover last year.
Typically. Yeah,
That's typical. 575. Do we have hard time hiring teachers?
historically, no, right? But it's the quality. Now, I can tell you more after Saturday, right? We'll see how our job fair goes and we'll know kind of where that market is. Now, this year, in the last 2 years, we've had pain in hiring teachers that we've never experienced. so is that going to continue or not? We'll have to see. But, you know, we've been in a very fortunate place previous to these last couple of years, but the last 2 years, it's been difficult. We have more vacant teacher jobs now than we've ever seen before. that
And how
we
many
just never
teachers
filled all year.
how many teachers about do we have?
Teachers, 4,500-ish,
Yeah, give or take.
4,500-ish teachers.
I think a big component of that is all the ESSER money that's available and all the
Yes.
additional positions that have been created. Now, as districts come off that cliff and that funding goes away, will the job market open back up to us?
Right, once the bubbles pop.
Right.
Well, in the current climate.
Yeah.
So now looking at, just move forward, looking at retention stipends that we've been discussing, looking at a retention stipend of $500 on October 1st, that'd be very similar to what we did this year, and $1,000 on February 15th. Once again, those can be adjusted depending on budget and ADA. Currently, the funding mechanism for this retention stipend will be our ESSER funds, so you will not see it in the actual general fund budget as y'all approve that. And this year, we are looking at a potential Reading Academy stipend for teachers who have completed that program, and we will bring this item to the board for your approval at the April 19th board meeting. Yes, sir.
Help me with that reading academy.
Yeah, so that's a program that the legislature put in requiring all elementary teachers to go through this reading academy, which we believe is a good program. The problem is they didn't fund it, and they don't give us any extra time to do it. It requires, I don't know if Edith's in here, 60 hours, of time outside of their school day to complete. And right now, it's uncompensated 60 hours. We won't be able to reach a level of compensating them truly for what they are worth for their time. But I do think it's, a step of at least showing acknowledgement that they're working outside of their day and what it takes to complete that, for us to come in and do that. And I think,
What is this academy
Yeah.
do? Was this enriching them? What?
yeah, it's to help them learn to, well, I'll let Edith, you want to talk a little bit?
It's, we had come to you before to talk to you about, the purpose of it is to really help, the phonics and the phonemic awareness component of the early literacy piece for our kiddos, so that those early literacy indicators, because as our kids, struggle with reading, all our teachers need to be able to learn how to do that at the earlier grade level. So in our district, currently it's pre-K through 4 teachers that are going underneath, or going through this training.
Yeah, the Tribune had a pretty alarmist article that came out recently regarding, the unfairness of having to do this on your own time.
And our principals
Point
do a
that.
good job of trying to help, right? They protect some staff development days and they do some, but you can't give enough time to get it done. And so, I think when you talk about not only recruiting, but just retaining good
Yeah.
teachers, this is one of those, it's an acknowledgement piece of,
Yeah.
we understand that, you've been asked to do more. It would be a one-time deal, just if you've completed it in Conroe ISD, then you would get it. But,
I
So
would
that,
support
it's just, that is something, and truthfully, it's something that we've just started talking about here in the last few days of trying to really look at that and see if we could fund it, but we feel like it's a worthwhile endeavor to look at it.
And then just as a note, as Dr. Knoll mentioned earlier, all employees were given 3 additional local days, beginning with this school year. That made our total local days of 5. And the employees had 3 options with those days. Number 1, they could use them. Number 2, they could roll those days over and bank them for years to come, or they could elect to be paid for those days. So they do have 3 options with those additional local days, and that puts us more in line with other districts.
Retention, the 500 and 1,000.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that represent in total dollars?
It's a little over $10 million.
$10 million, okay. So 13.3 payroll increase, 10
And
million.
10 million on retentions.
23. Okay.
20, yes, ma'am. So today we get our first look at the new Blue Cross Blue Shield benefits, plan design and premium recommendations. The full employee benefit committee meeting met last week and voted on this benefit plan design, and we hope to bring this to the board at the April 19th board meeting to approve this. The switch to Blue Cross Blue Shield Looks like it's been a smart move, especially as we compare the United Healthcare renewal rates compared to what Blue Cross Blue Shield's proposing. And this will keep us more competitive with our peer districts as we look at those comparisons. So just a quick agenda through this. We'll take a look at our current benefit plan design and funding levels. We'll look at our 21-22 plan performance and our fund balance. And then we'll begin to look at our Blue Cross Blue Shield plan design. They have 3 networks, the Blue Premier, Blue Essentials, and Blue Choice. Then we'll look at our recommended 22-23 benefit plan design changes, and then our premium calculations. So starting with our current premiums for 21-22, the pink column you see there, that is the United Charter or Kelsey program. That Kelsey is the primary hospital in that plan. In the yellow is a United Nexus plan that has Memorial Hermann as the ACO hospital in that plan. And then in the blue, that is our high deductible plan, and that is with their choice network there, so a wide open PPO network. Last year, we were required to generate 1.5% additional revenue, or $922,000. If y'all will recall, last year at this time, we were sitting here looking at about a 9% increase, or roughly $5 million last year. If y'all remember, we made some changes. A lot of that increase was $2.5 million on expected COVID surge from elective surgeries. We have seen that this year, so we thank the board for allowing us to use fund balance to cover that. We also bid out our stop loss insurance at a savings of close to $1 million on that. And then also we changed our pharmacy PBM to Core Trust, still utilizing the Optum pharmacy, but Core Trust managing that for us. And we were able to save close to $2 million in that program. So that took out the majority of the increase we were looking at. So as you can see, we just had to make slight increases to premiums last year to cover that. So with that, very small plan design changes in the tier 2 of the Nexus plan. We changed from a copay to a percentage, and then just some market adjustments in the high deductible plan in the out-of-pocket maximums there. So very, very minimal plan design changes last year. So now taking a look at our current plan year performance, we just got finished reconciling March. So total revenues for the year, $31.4 million. Total expenses, $33.7 million. For revenues under expenses of about $2.2 million. We know the summer months are coming up. Those are usually our higher months. So we're projecting a minimum of another $1.5, $1.8 million decrease in our fund balance. So total for the year about $3.5 million probably for the plan year. Wellness centers participation, we're averaging just $347 a month. We are in discussions with the Employee Benefits Committee, and we will probably bring a recommendation next month to talk about closing the benefit, just because there's so many other benefit vehicles out there for us now that it makes it viable for us to close that facility.
Virtual options seems like the wave of the future right now. Yeah, absolutely.
And we offer virtual at no cost to our employees. So
exactly.
So it's a great avenue for that.
What's the
It's
cost
not like we're
of
closing
the,
something.
sorry, what's the cost of the wellness clinic?
It's about $600,000 a year.
All right, okay.
In addition to probably 3 or 4 classrooms that it's taking up
It's
on
6 classrooms.
6 classrooms
Six
that it's taking up on a campus that needs room. So there'll be an instructional benefit too. If we choose to close it, we can regain some instructional space at that building.
So taking a look at our fund balance, we ended 2020, 2021 at $6.78 million in the fund balance, so a good, strong fund balance in our plan. With the decrease that we're projecting, about $3.5 million, we're projecting fund balance ending at $3.28 million for the year. So looking at the process that we go through, this is 2 years worth of claims information. And Gallagher works with United Healthcare. They take all this claims information, they run it through their actuarial computers or apps or whatever their mechanisms are, and they run that through, and those calculations go through the discounts that United has with all their doctors, with all their hospital networks and everything. And working with United Healthcare, they came up with you know, the increase that we would if we stayed status quo with United Healthcare. So with that, it was a calculated rate increase of 9.6%, or just a little over $5 million. So once again, staying status quo, no benefit plan design changes. Our employees, our employee pay plans, our employee benefit plans on the high deductible plan, and I'm just going to mention the employee only for each one of these. The employee only would have increased $51. The Nexus ACO, that is primarily the Memorial Hermann group, would have increased about $60 a month. The Kelsey plan, which is actually called the charter plan, would have increased right about $60 a month. So you can see substantial increases for all of our groups there had we stayed status quo with United Healthcare. Once again, needing to generate about $5.2 million in additional revenue. So once we saw that, we went out to bid, and thankfully the board, approved Blue Cross Blue Shield last month. Blue Cross Blue Shield is recommending 3 networks, the Blue Premier, and it compares very similar to the Nexus with United Healthcare in that Memorial Hermann is the primary hospital in that network. It is the lowest cost plan that they offer. It is their most efficient plan, and it has the highest benefits. They offer the Blue Essentials, it compares with the charter plan, which was where Kelsey was with United Healthcare. However, this plan is a broader network. This plan also includes Memorial Hermann as a hospital in there, MD Anderson, Texas Children's, St. Luke's, Methodist, all those hospital networks are within this network that they're providing us. And it is going to be a higher cost, slightly higher benefits than the Blue Premier, but it is a larger network that they are offering there. And then the Blue Choice is the PPO network for our high deductible plan. In the Blue Choice, we're going to recommend no rate change or benefit change in that plan. So once again, Gallagher, working with Blue Cross Blue Shield, took the same 24 months of premiums, ran it through their scenarios with their hospitals, discounts, doctor discounts, etc. And running it through that, they came up with an actual calculated rate decrease of 5.3% or $2.8 million. So the difference between this and the increase that we would have seen with United Healthcare is about $8.2 million difference.
Amazing.
Put it in context, $8.2 million is about 115 teachers.
Yeah. Just
to kind of give you an idea. Totally different, pots of money, but just kind of give you a context of what that means. So with those changes, these were the rate plans that the Employee Benefits Committee voted for these programs. The high deductible plan, which will be their Blue Choice network, you can see we're saying the rates there should remain the same. The new Blue Premier, which is the HMO plan, you can see employee only on current rates, where we currently sit, we're looking at a $50 per month decrease. Employee and spouse, $68 per month decrease. Employee and children, $144. Employee and family, $156. And then in the Blue Essentials network, just some smaller decreases, but a decrease nonetheless. Employee only, $4. Employee and spouse, $6. Employee and children, another $4 again. And then employee and family, $20. So this is just a comparative chart here that you can see them right there next to each other. So in the pink, that is the United Charter at the beginning, transitioning over to Blue Essentials, and you can see those rate decreases. In the green, that is the United Nexus, Memorial Hermann ACO transitioning to the Blue Premier. You can see those monthly premium decreases. And then you can see in the blue, that is our high deductible plan, no change we're requesting there. So our required funding was $51.1 million, savings of about $2.8 million. Plan design changes. It's kind of unique because we're moving from the United Charter plan was our tightest network. It was only for Kelsey, and it had the highest benefits. Kind of switching between that with the Blue Essentials and the Blue Premier. So we're basically switching those benefit programs between the two. As you can see, we're moving from annual deductible on the individual in the Blue Essentials plan to $1,500, and that's where it was in the Nexus plan. So we just kind of swapped those benefit packages around in those two plans to align the networks with the benefit package that they needed. The Tier 2 portion of the Nexus plan, we're terminating that package. For this year, that is not offered with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then the high deductible plan, once again, the out-of-pocket maximum, just some slight changes, market adjustments for the individual and family on that.
So it looks like that based on the information, the design changes don't really change as far as out-of-pockets, deductibles.
Correct.
Things like that. Pretty much status quo.
Yes.
Okay.
And we had the question last month about disruption, as we were talking. Disruption will be about 1.4%, about 200 employees, possibly, having some disruption. But on any given year, you're going to have disruption in a plan just because doctors are coming off the plan. So that's very typical of a plan.
Okay, thank you.
So wanted just to kind of give you a comparison between United Healthcare and their proposed rates for 22-23 and Blue Cross Blue Shield for 22-23, just to kind of give you an idea of what the change means. Once again, I'm just going to stick with employee only. Y'all can see the rest. In the Blue Essentials program, you can see an annual cost difference for employee only of $744. In the Blue Premier program for employee only, you can see a savings of $1,332. I don't want to say a saving, it's cost avoidance, for employee only. And look at employee and family, almost $3,700 or almost $3,800 cost avoidance there. And then also the savings that we see in the high deductible plan. So I think it was a very, wise decision on the board's part to go ahead and make the switch to Blue Cross Blue Shield.
But year over year, I mean, this is what you said, cost avoidance. This is what it would have been if we had stayed with United.
Correct.
The year over year, the employees will see 5-ish%
Correct.
decrease, not this 10%.
Correct. And one
Which
thing
is
that
still
I've
good.
noticed, one thing I've noticed in our health plan, and I know y'all seen it, it's cyclical. We'll have years where we don't have the high dollar claims, everything runs good, our fund balance goes up, and then we'll get hit. I mean, this year, if y'all saw the number of high dollar claims we've had, it's astonishing.
Yeah, because we have.
It's like every week we have 2 or 3 coming in, and a high dollar claim is any claim over $50,000. They're just coming in groves this year. And a lot of that has to do with the elective surgeries, that people are now being able to get their knee replacements or their shoulder replacement or whatever their elective surgery may be. We're seeing a lot of that. So just kind of amazing. We've actually had 3 claimants exceed our stop loss of $550,000. So we've got rebates, back from the carrier on those. So just a lot of high claims out there this year. So we're hoping that those, the trend switches back the other way and we get in better shape moving forward. So we like to, give y'all information, district comparison as we're looking at, benefits for everybody. The first section that we're looking at is the employee premiums, the employee portion that they pay out. Now, this is our proposed 22-23 rates compared to district rates as they are today. And as you can see, on average, we compare very well with our peer districts. In employee and spouse, you see we're a little bit behind the curve there, but the reason, if y'all remember, there was a run on employee and spouse, the benefit we were paying out of there was just enormous, so we had to make an adjustments to cover that a couple of years ago, and so that is reflective there. The middle section is the district contribution. As you can see, we're on average, we outperform all the other districts, but Fort Bend does pay $570 per employee per month in their program, but I would like to point out they're with United Healthcare. Everybody else is with Blue Cross Blue Shield or with TRS in that effort.
Just from a clarification, why is it TRS? charges different premiums to different districts? Is it based on?
The combined premium is the same, it's just every district contributes a little different.
Thank
So
you.
that's the
Okay,
difference.
okay. I was trying to understand that, because that.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
doesn't
every
sound
di-
right.
if you look at the bottom has the total contribution, employee and
That makes
district.
sense now.
So it's just depending on what district contributes what, so.
Thank you.
So we think we're in a very good competitive state as far as it comes to our benefit package. We're probably gonna see all the other districts moving, TRS has not put their rates out there, they're coming out the 29th, but as soon as they do, we will share that information, with the board. So any more questions on benefits? Let me catch up here with my slides real quick. All right, well, we will make the move now to talk about our 2022-2023 personnel allocations. As Dr. Hines said earlier and Dr. Knoll seconded, we are in an aggressive job market, and we're being aggressive to hire those teachers. And as we said, this market is primarily caused by all the new positions created with all the money that we have from ESSER. So we're needing to be aggressive. We're needing to hire the teachers now and not put off till later in the year so that we can make sure that we fill those positions. A couple of changes we have made to our staffing formulas with our student-teacher ratios at pre-K. We're currently at 22-1. We reduced that to 19-1. That will cost about $1 million. At grades 5 and 6, our student-teacher ratio is currently 26-1. We're recommending changing that to 25-1 at about $600,000. So those are two moves we made with our staffing formulas. So for our additional personnel to support the opening of Gordon Reed Elementary and 1,750 new students, we have 156 new teachers at a cost of about $10.9 million. Then we have 36 additional staff at the campus level at a cost of $1.26 million for total additions of 192 positions at the campus level at a cost of $12.18 million. Support positions. We are adding 10 new special ed district support positions at a cost of $785,000. One administrator in the police force, then 2 paraprofessionals, and then we were able to do some payroll reconciliation within our auxiliary departments to clean up some positions that we had over allocated that they did not need, so we were able to bring those back in. And so we're actually totally reducing the total number of positions, but there is a cost of $665,000 in that. So total position change, we're adding 186 total positions at a cost of $12,845,000. So this is our 2022-2023 expenditures. Our general pay increase is $13.3 million. Additional personnel, $12.85 million. Our substitute pay increase, $300,000. Teacher incentive allotment, $1.89 million. Our employee retention stipend, we're moving out of the budget, taking that to ESSER, so we get that savings of $10 million. Increase in utilities, $1.85 million. Other expenses, including insurance, supplies, teacher incentive allotment, $710,000. TRS in-kind fund, the offset to our accounting entry, $1.75 million, for total expenditures of $22.65 million. Now just looking at our revenues and expenditures together, our beginning revenue, $586.12 million. Our total estimated revenue increase, $32.65 million, for our estimated total revenue of $618.77 million. On the expenditure side, our beginning expenditures, $596.12 million. We have total estimated expenditure increase of $22.65 million, with estimated total expenditures of $618.77 million, leaving us with a balanced budget.
The difference between the TIA, between revenue and expenditures, that is the portion we're allowed to use for.
No, ma'am, if you look into other expenses,
Yeah.
the other expenses, there's teacher incentive allotment, little piece in there that makes up that difference. They're just in a different
But,
pay group, so we split that
Yes,
out.
the difference is we're allowed to take 10% off
all
to
right.
administer the plan.
Thank you, Ms. Garza.
That's what was moved to other expenses?
Yes.
Okay,
So
okay.
some is in payroll as well, because we have a coordinator that we've hired to oversee the program, so it's in that payroll,
Okay.
additional
Thank you.
personnel number.
So now we always like to look at our fund balance, and this is our goal and it is to maintain an unassigned fund balance in the range of 20 to 25% of the budget. Our projected unassigned fund balance at the end of this year is $180.6 million. Our target at 25% is $154.7 million. So that has available above our 25% target, $25.9 million. So just wanted to show y'all a pro forma that we put together for 23-24. As you can see, this is showing a potential deficit of $11.8 million. And what we just wanted to show y'all is that there's no mechanism currently in the state funding formula or available to districts that provide funding for raises for next year. We have a raise built into this pro forma, but there is no mechanism within the state funding formula. So it really is up to our state legislatures to make that decision for our teachers. And I think Dr. Knowles had those conversations with our
Yeah,
with our
I've reminded them
representatives.
multiple times that, you know, that's just the route they took when they redid the funding formulas. Now they have the privilege and the pleasure of providing raises to teachers, and they just have to remember that they have that. So when they go, they have to do it.
They have this group, right? This special group that's supposed to look at
Yes.
exactly this. Okay, wow.
Yeah, they have a committee that's looking at teacher retention.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure they'll come out with some different things from there. So, but yeah, that's just part of the deal is, you know, we've reached the end of this funding formula that we're there on the payroll. And I know we've got a little bit of time maybe to go back and discuss anything you want to talk about payroll, but just a couple of the questions that were asked that I can answer. We have over 60 vacancies right now in child nutrition. We have over 60 vacancies right now in custodial. So that,
So you think this increase, if we were just increasing it $1, if I'm mistaken, right? Average
yes,
of
that
the base.
base.
Yeah,
$1.
the floor.
The floor.
Yeah.
So what does that do percentage wise to that tranche?
It's about 8%.
8%? Do you think that would have an impact?
It's about $750 a year.
Do you think?
And that's where the retention stipends play a huge role, right? Is for those groups, because we do a flat rate retention stipend and not a percentage based. When we do retention stipends, they are the primary beneficiaries as far as percentage of their pay. So that they are very significant.
So we thoroughly understand that's gonna be
Yeah.
huge for percentage wise. So
Right.
1,500 plus the additional $1. You think that's gonna have an impact?
Well, we did see that we got better when we raised the pay last year midstream. It helped, and so I think it will help. You know, the question is, you know, would 14 help more? Would 15 help more? Sure, it would. But what that's going to do is increase costs beyond what we're funded to do, right? So, like we did ask TASB to run it at 14 an hour, and that would have been over an additional $3 million through the budget. So that's the challenge is.
We have to ask ourselves, are we prepared to, you said 60 people? 60?
That's what we're short, yes.
So we have to ask ourselves, are we prepared to have a shortfall of, I don't know, 20, 30 folks? I know
Potentially,
we're ready to
yes.
make that, Okay.
Yeah.
If we are, we're good. We just need to understand that and be prepared for it.
Right. And I think it's something that we can keep chasing, right?
Understood.
And potentially, you know, you could increase the retention stipend amount. If there was money in the budget in the future, you could do that, and that would, you know, once again, help with those areas. So I think the common idea is everybody sees the pain, especially at the floor. It's just, what can we fund? You know, the funds available are finite. It's about $13 million. It's just where do you want to move them across the groups, you know? So,
Well, the other question I had, unrelated to personnel, is fuel costs. I assume we've got something in there because, I mean, I'm seeing diesel fuel at over $4 a gallon, soon to be $5.
Yeah, we have,
Significant for us.
when prices decreased several years ago, we pulled that out of the transportation budget, but we didn't take it out of the budget. So we still have the ability to grow as far as fuel costs go. Where it's going to catch us is on utilities. And you can see we have an increase in here for our utilities. You know, Karen's watching that nervously every day. I say, how do utilities look today? And it is a scary number.
Yeah.
So we've got about $1.85 million set in the budget for next year. not knowing where not knowing where the war with Russia and them are gonna, where it's gonna head. So we're hoping that's gonna be enough for next year.
And we tend to manage our utilities very well from what I can see.
Yes, sir.
All the different methods that we use, I think it's great.
With all the different purchasing cooperatives that we use for things like utilities and fuel, what is the lag time on these market fluctuations since they're purchasing those things so far ahead? I mean, like, if we were to buy diesel today, it's not gonna be at the QT price that we see on the street corner. It's gonna be at whatever their
We buy
purchase
gas at a factor above what the market is that day.
Right.
So we actually had our fuel vendor, not want to give us that rate because it was changing so many times throughout a day. They were like, wait, we can't give it to you what it was in the morning, but that was our agreement with them.
Right.
So we forced them to give us that, but they were saying, no, it went up, 15 cents in the last hour. But it is Mr. Reeves, do you know what is that index called? I don't. The Houston Ship Channel, market for fuel, and so we get that every morning. And so when Mr. Davlin and his group, does a fuel order, they look at that, they know what the price is for the oil because we give a factor above that, and that is where we get our fuel. So it is a daily adjustment.
That is through our own bid. We do a reverse auction for that, for our fuel, so.
So if Proposition 1 passes, the legislature says they'll hold harmless for 22, 23, but for the pro forma for this year. But for next year, what would happen with that homestead?
They will hold us harmless moving forward.
So that's.
Now, we will
permanent hold
receive no hold harmless on the M&O side.
Right.
So on the M&O side, we're not eligible for any harm. It won't affect us because our values are growing so high. Where we will get some hold harmless is on our debt service side. And what we've seen in the past is that hold harmless kind of goes away. So we kind of plan for that with our growth in our debt service side, but it is good for next year.
I think that may help us, like you said, take some advantage and do some defeasance of some bonds a little early.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
On the slide that showed the personnel increases, is that assuming the new proposed pay rate for those salaries?
Yes, sir.
Good job, man.
And then just what's next, this evening, we hope to bring you the employee pay plan for your approval. Still need to finalize our revenues, both state funding and our tax values, our expenditures with personnel, compensation, campus and department expenditure needs, future board meetings, public hearings, and budget approval. At the April 19th board meeting, we would like to bring the benefit plan designs to the board, and then also we will bring our various stipends for y'all's approval. We'll have a June 7th board workshop if necessary. We feel pretty good about our budget currently. July 13th, we will present the budget to the district level planning and decision-making committee. They will make a recommendation to the board, and we will bring that recommendation to y'all on July 19th. We'll have our first public hearing on August 2nd. August 16th, we'll have our second public hearing, and then that same evening, we will ask the board to adopt the budget and the tax rate. And that is everything.
Any questions we can answer, any discussion?
Just say excellent job and thank you to everybody. A $600 and something million budget's not an easy task, and we commend you for your work, all of you.
10 keys, we're burning it up.
Okay, well, if there's nothing further, then we will go ahead and adjourn from our board workshop. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Question to you.
Okay.
So this Saturday, can you speak a little bit why it's important to understand the pay and all of that?
It just helps. Anytime you go to the job fair market, especially when you're recruiting from the outside, it helps if you can share with people what your pay will be, so that they know. If we don't have it, we don't have it. There have been years that we have it. There have been years that we don't have it yet. It's just, if you can speak to it, it's helpful.
And
you don't know if it's going to make, is $1,500 going to make the difference between them choosing us over somebody else? You never know what all those different factors may be of why a teacher would choose to go where they go, but absolutely plays a part.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
And if y'all would like us to study further hourly employee, we can approve just portions of that pay plan. If we wanted to approve the, teacher hiring schedule, we could have that ready for the weekend. That would be helpful too.
Yeah, we've done that. We've historically done that as well, like only approved the teacher hiring schedule and then waited for the rest of the pay plan at a later time, to get to the job fair.
And on the auxiliary, or I guess the non-exempt, we have flexibility throughout the year to adapt there?
We could, but there's just no mechanism in the budget necessarily to fund it,
I mean-
right? Yeah, I mean, beyond that, yes, you could adjust the pay plan. We did that with the
Yeah.
custodial
Yeah.
Exactly.
last year, 2 years
we did-
ago, we
Yeah.
adjusted mid.
We did it 1 year with bus drivers at mid-year, and then we did it, last year, we upped it from $10 to $12 minimum.
So we could see how the 13 plays out, but then adjust
And then-
accordingly, like we did in previous years.
Yes, ma'am.
Versus with the teachers, those are contracts.
Pretty set,
and-
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are set.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we will adjourn at 3:46. Thank you all. Here we go.
I call this meeting of the Conroe Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. Let the record show that a quorum of members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is 4:30 p.m. I will turn some time over to Mr. Sanders and Mr. Inman respectively for our invocation and our pledges of allegiance.
If you would, please bow with me as we pray. Lord God, we thank you for this day and for all that you give to us and all the blessings you provide to us. We ask that you would be present with us as we make decisions regarding this school district. Bless all of us as board members and give us wisdom to know what to do. We pray that you would be with our students, our staff, our administrators, our teachers, our parents, our guardians. Lord, just give them peace each and every day as we work through the pandemic and the many struggles of life. We just ask your blessings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, gentlemen. Move on to item 2A, citizen participation. In accordance with Board Policy BED and Texas Government Code, Section 551.007, any citizen who is signed up in accordance with Board Policy BED may address the board regarding tonight's posted agenda items only. Ms. Godfrey, has anyone signed up to address the board?
No one has signed up.
Thank you. Item 3A, consent agenda, consider approval of minutes. I will entertain a motion.
Motion approved as presented.
Motion on the floor.
Second?
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Item passes. All right, we are moving to 4A, Business Finance. Consider approval of the 2022-2023 teacher hiring schedule and employee pay plan. Dr. Null.
Mr. Rice.
Right. Good evening, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. It is my pleasure to recommend the Board of Trustees approve the 2022-2023 teacher hiring schedule and employee pay plan as presented in the board workshop. This proposal is recommended by CISD Compensation Group, and it includes a $1,500 pay increase for all teachers and a 2% general pay increase on the midpoint for all other staff. The pay plan contains a minimum starting hourly wage of $13 per hour for all hourly employees. CISD administration believes that this proposal will keep CISD competitive with peer school districts in the Houston area. Under this plan, the starting teacher salary is $60,000, and total teacher salaries will increase by approximately $6,187,000. Non-teacher salary increases total approximately $7,116,000. Total cost is approximately $13.3 million. CISD believes that approving the teacher hiring schedule and employee pay plan in conjunction with the proposed retention stipends will improve employee recruitment and retention. At this time, I recommend your approval.
So move.
Second the motion.
Have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
So on behalf of the staff, I'll say thank you. I know it will be appreciated, and we will certainly share that at the job fair this weekend. I know that it will be a big help, so we appreciate that.
And thank you again to everyone who put in work on that. We know it's a lot of work. We will not be moving into executive session. We can remove items 5 and 6. We'll move on to item 7A. Consideration and possible hearing for the proposed non-renewal of the term contract of teacher Sonia Trevino. Ms. Trevino is unable to be here tonight, so we will table that item to a later date pending notification of Ms. Trevino. 7B, consider approval of settlement agreement and TEA docket number 230-SE-0721 and authorize the superintendent to complete negotiations and execute the necessary documents.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the settlement in TEA cause number 230-SE-0721 and authorize Dr. Knoll to finalize negotiations and execute the necessary documents.
Have a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, call a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned at 4:35 PM.
Thank you all.